Hey, Vince, I have a question.
Yeah, man.
How do you kill a vegan vampire?
How do you kill a vegan vampire? How do you kill
A filet mignon to the heart, man. A filet mignon to the heart.
Why didn't I think of that?
All right, guys. Welcome all you beautiful Huddleites. I can't wait to get started today.
For a minute there, Rawlin, I thought you were going to say a steak to the heart.
I was thinking about it. I thought that'd be too easy. I had to get you to think about it.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Daily Huddle. Good morning, Facebook. Good morning to each and every one of you that has made the decision to join us. Here in the morning, my name is Vince Rountree, myself and my co-host, Mr. Rawlin Vanatta. We are together the co-hosts of the Health, Wellness, and Vitality Show. And as always, we have some information for you that we think can actually be life-saving. We actually know it can be life-saving because we've seen it firsthand. Today is going to be our part 3 of the deadly diabetes myths. And we're going to talk about the things to eat and information that is disseminated about diabetes that you really need to know, because once you understand this, you'll understand that diabetes remission is possible. But before we get to that, as always on the Daily Huddle, we've got a few questions. We always start off with a few questions, and the first question I'm going to ask is to Mr. Sohail Khaitan. And Mr. Sohail, how are you today, my friend? How are you?
I am the way I say I am, Vince. And today I am ecstatic.
You are as you say you are, and today, you say that you are ecstatic, and as a result,
I am.
You are ecstatic. That's what I'm talking about. Wonderful thing, wonderful thing, wonderful thing. My next question goes to my co-host, Mr. Rawlin Vanatta. What time is it, Mr. Vanatta? What time is it, sir?
I believe that it's right now.
The only time that matters is the right now. And I'm gonna the last question goes to myself, but I'm not gonna ask myself. That'd be kind of rhetorical, so I'll just say, I am here. I am here, right here. I can affect the here. I can affect the now, and I am the way I say I am, because that's the way you get the most out of life. All right, so today is part 3 of the deadly diabetes myths. And before I get into this one, I'm just going to ask my partner in business, partner in crime, my very good friend, Rawlin Vanatta, to go ahead and start us off this morning. What you got, partner?
Hello, beautiful, good-looking people. So if anybody out there has listened to any of these deadly diabetic myths, you probably got a somewhat of a handle on it. We've been deconstructing diabetes. And today we're going to tell you what the worst advice you could possibly get as a diabetic is, particularly type 2 diabetic. And I want to tell you how bad and why it's so important. So I was on Facebook a couple days ago, and Vince doesn't even know this yet. So I was on a Facebook, and someone that's from my town, my hometown, that I kind of know, but I don't really know them. But a Facebook friend know them. You raise your hand if you know what I mean when you talk about you kind of a Facebook friend knows someone. You're like, I think I kind of know that person. I don't know. I'm not going to unfriend them because I think I kind of know them, and I don't even know why I'm seeing their post right now. But I saw her post, and her post said something like this, and I'm paraphrasing. I've thought a lot about this, and I'm making one of the biggest decisions of my life. I'm going to amputate my leg. So I felt compelled to give this lady a direct message, because my suspicion was that she was going to have to amputate her leg because of diabetic neuropathy, because of type 2 diabetes. And I messaged her and I asked her, if you don't mind me asking, what is calling for this to happen, for them to saw your leg off? And she messaged back, sure, I don't mind, type 2 diabetes. That's what she said. And because it got to this point where they're going to have to cut her leg off because her diabetic neuropathy pain is so unbearable, they are going to take it off because it's better for her in her mind, because of the pain being so bad, to not have a leg rather than to have a leg that hurts. I want you to think about this for a second. What you're going to learn today is the standard advice you're giving as a type 2 diabetic. If she had been given the opposite of this advice, she would not be scheduling a surgery today. I want you to understand this. Sometimes when I walk into a grocery store, especially if it's summer, I look around, and it's typically, people in their 50s, 60s, 70s. A lot of times they're overweight. They're not always overweight. But if they have shorts on, you can see if they have really bad diabetes, because around from the shins down, it'll be a lot redder, a little swollen. They got diabetic neuropathy. And you know what they're eating because you can see their grocery carts. And they are following the advice that they're told that will guarantee their problem gets worse over time. Guarantee the type 2 diabetes will get worse over time. Guarantee. Do you hear what I'm saying? Wave at me if you hear what I'm saying. Can you think of an absolutely worst case? I mean, it's absolutely, because it's such a catch-22. Just imagine you're given a diagnosis for a chronic disease. Chronic disease meaning they say they have no idea the causal relationship. They don't know what causes it. And it's funny. Dr. Michael Clapper goes around to medical universities and to vegetarian festivals, et cetera, et cetera. And he does a presentation. You know what that presentation is called? What I wished I learned about nutrition in medical school. He was an emergency room physician. Then he became an anesthesiologist. And then he learned about plant-based nutrition. He learned about plant-based nutrition as it related to heart disease, as it related to type 2 diabetes, as it related to autoimmune diseases, as it related to arthritis and joint pain, as it related to obesity, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, to mood, to digestion. But the biggest thing here, and I'm fixing to turn it over to Mr. Vince Rountree, but here's the gravity of what we're talking about. The number one cause of limb amputation, the number one cause of blindness, is type 2 diabetes. You know what Michael Clapper, Dr. Michael Clapper, Dr. Michael Greger, Dr. Neil Barnard, Dr. Joel Furman, Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn, you know what all them guys figured out? And I'm leaving a lot out, I know. They figured out that the worst advice you can give someone that has type 2 diabetes is the advice that's given to them on a daily basis all the time, and they follow it. And guess what? Their diabetes gets worse. But see, the statement is, well, we don't know the cause. Well, the statement is, well, once you get it, it's just going to get worse over time. We just got to manage it. But if that's true, how come clients that we work with, clients that Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn works with, if y'all remember the Eric Adams story that he had almost lost his vision, the doctor told him to hand in his driver's license. You can't drive anymore. He goes to 5 doctors. They all tell him the same thing, and they give him the same advice, the same worse advice that you're fixing to learn exactly what it is. That will guarantee it gets worse. He goes to the internet. He types in, he used to be a private investigator. He says, there has to be something. There has to be something. He wasn't one of those people that just gives up. But think about how easy it would be to give up if 5 of the top doctors you could find told you the same thing, you're going to lose your vision. How many people would give up, right? He didn't. And thank God he didn't, because he ran across Caldwell Esselstyn. Caldwell Esselstyn gave him the advice that was opposite from the worst advice ever. So opposite. 3 weeks, he got his eyesight back. Now, my heart goes out to this lady that is fixing to have a leg amputation, because it's possible. It's possible that she may not even need one. Vince Rountree, tell us, what is that worst advice? What are our grandparents and our parents, our sisters, our brothers, our children, our nieces, our nephews, the people we go to church with, all those people that have type 2 diabetes, what are they being told?
That the most important food that you need to eat are foods with a low glycemic index. What are low glycemic index foods? Well, what is glycemic index? Glycemic index is a measure of the amount of carbohydrates in foods that convert to glucose. And it makes sense. It's logical to eat low glycemic index foods. Why? Because diabetes is a excess glucose in the bloodstream. Well, if the carbohydrates convert to glucose and you eat foods low in carbohydrates, then you get less glucose. That's logical. I get it. That is logical. Well, why am I telling you that that is the worst foods that you can eat? I say that because of this. The cause of type 2 diabetes is insulin resistance. What is insulin resistance? Insulin resistance is an interference between glucose and insulin. Well, Vince, what are you talking about? What do you mean it's the interference between glucose and insulin? Well, the way that it's supposed to work is when you eat a potato, the carbohydrates convert to glucose. Glucose goes up in the bloodstream. When glucose goes up in the bloodstream, the pancreas makes insulin. Insulin's job is to bring glucose from the bloodstream into the muscle cell. Think of insulin like fuel, and think of the muscle cell like the engine. And you've got to get the fuel from the fuel tank into the engine. So you've got to get the glucose from the bloodstream into the muscle cell. The muscle cell is like the engine. Insulin's job is to bring glucose from the bloodstream into the muscle cell. But if you have insulin resistance, it now is difficult to get glucose from the bloodstream into the muscle cell. It's difficult. And so it happens slowly. It can't get in there. Why can't it get in there? Why is it that someone with diabetes can eat a potato and their blood glucose goes through the roof? Why is that? The answer is saturated fat in the muscle cell. Insulin resistance is caused by saturated fat in the muscle cell. Well, where does saturated fat come from? Saturated fat is in every animal-based product that you can eat. It's in chicken, it's in beef, it's in pork, it's in fish. Yes, it's in fish, but fish is healthy. Saturated fat is in fish. It's in cheese, it's in ice cream, it's in sour cream, it's in every animal-based products. It's also high in coconut oil and palm oil. But for most people, the saturated fat that's in their body comes from eating meat, cheese, fish, dairy, eggs. And guess what foods? Guess what foods have the lowest glycemic index?
You're ready for it. You're ready for it. Everybody ready for this? What is the food that has, go ahead, Vince. What has the lowest saturated fat? What is it?
The foods that have the lowest glycemic index, which is what they're saying to eat. Eat foods low glycemic index. That means the carbs, there's not many carbs that can go to glucose. So the foods low in glycemic index, that's what we need to focus on. But the foods low in glycemic index are meat, cheese, fish, dairy, eggs. And you see, the same foods that are low in glycemic index are high in saturated fat. Understand what I'm saying. The foods that are low in glycemic index, and people and diabetics are being told all over the world, eat foods low in glycemic index. And they think they're pulling the skin off the chicken, and that's the solution. They're eating wild-caught fish. They think that's the solution. They're following the advice because these foods are low in glycemic index. But they're high in saturated fat. And saturated fat gets in the muscle cell. And when saturated fat is in the muscle cell, glucose can't get in. So glucose just keeps building up in the bloodstream. And so if you have type 2 diabetes, the single most important thing that you can do is eliminate all animal-based products. Don't eat cheese, milk, meat, cheese, fish, dairy, eggs. Don't eat those foods. Don't eat oil. Instead, eat fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes, beans, lentils, split peas, chickpeas. Eat potatoes, eat brown rice. Oh my God, I can't eat potatoes, I can't eat rice. Those foods are high in glycemic index. Well, the first dietary advice should be don't eat any animal products, don't eat oil. Do that first. Then, of the foods that are left, eat low glycemic index. Because in that order, you eliminate saturated fat. Then, advice number 2 is low glycemic index. That, my friends, is the worst dietary advice that all diabetics get.
Okay, let me pop in here for a second, Vince. So you're saying the worst advice ever is to eat low glycemic index foods. So in a sense, because that means that you're going to have to choose mostly foods that are high in saturated fat. If you're going to eat foods that are low glycemic, then you're also simultaneously going to be eating the cause of the problem. So what they're really telling you when they say to eat low glycemic foods is to make your problem worse over time as quickly as possible.
That's exactly what they're saying. All right, we threw a lot at you today. It's 22 minutes after the hour. Are there any questions? Does anybody have any questions on what we spoke about today?
I got one right here that came through. Go ahead.
Wait. We got our dear friend Cece has raised her hand and her camera is on and she is a client. So we have to recognize Cece. Good morning, Cece.
Good morning, everyone. I had a question. Are potatoes and brown rice, are they low glycemic foods and as well as oatmeal?
So important. Thank you for that question. Potatoes, brown rice, and what was the third one you said? Potatoes,
oatmeal.
Brown rice, and
Oatmeal.
Oatmeal. Potatoes, brown rice, oatmeal. Those are foods that people that have diabetes should be eating a lot of, and that will sound crazy. We had a client that said, I am terrified to eat potatoes. I can't do that. He had a fasting glucose of 300. Now, for those that don't understand diabetes numbers and fasting glucose, ideal is between 70 and 100. Between 100 and 125, that's pre-diabetes. If your fasting glucose is over 125, you have diabetes. If your fasting glucose is over 200, that's completely out of control. Diabetes. His fasting glucose was 300. And he said, I am terrified to eat a potato.
Like he had a continuous. Go ahead.
Step 1, stop eating the animal products and the oil. Stop that first. Then eat the potato.
A little background on this guy.
Huh?
I just want to give them a little background on this guy. I mean, this is how bad his diabetes was. Is he had a continuous glucose monitor hooked up to his body because he had diabetes so bad. His diabetes was so bad that the year prior, in March 2021, he was put in the hospital and almost died from ketoacidosis. What ketoacidosis is your pancreas having to overwork so much over the course of so long living with diabetes, it just tuckered out and nearly died. He was on all crazy levels of insulin. He did what Vince is sharing with you right now, and will probably continue to say here the next few minutes. But I want you to wrap your head around this idea. This man almost died because his diabetes was so bad. Continuous glucose monitor. He was like 3 or 4 times higher than what he should be, even with meds, even with insulin. We told him to eat potatoes. He said, I can't do that. I'm terrified. I'm terrified. We said, as long as you're not eating saturated fat at the same time, watch what happens. But that's the trick. That's the
5
trick.
days. In 5 days, his fasting glucose went from 300 to 109 while eating potatoes. So thank you for that question, CC. While eating potatoes, brown rice, oatmeal.
What do you got for us, Sorrel?
This is good stuff. I'm wondering one thing, guys. Is there such a thing as too late for remission? I mean, could it be that your diabetes, type 2 diabetes, is so bad that there's no turning back?
Here is what I have seen, Sorrel. Here's what we know and here's what we don't know. When you eliminate all animal-based products and all oil, your body's ability to manage glucose gets better. I don't care where you are. I don't care how old you are. I don't care how bad you are. It gets better. Will it get better enough to get off medication? Absolutely, we can't promise that. But I've never seen somebody's fasting glucose not go down. It always goes down. I just don't know how much it'll go down. And I don't know if it'll be enough to get off medication. But there are stories. There is a story of a lady who was 96 years old on insulin, type 2 diabetic on insulin, 96. That she was able to get off all of her meds, get off her insulin after going plant-based at 96. Now, is that common? Probably not. But it can happen. So I don't care how old you are, you never know how well your body can repair itself. The body is an incredible healing machine. And the way to find out how well your body can do is give it a try. Give it a try.
You know, when Vince says, is it common? The real question is, how many 96-year-olds abandon all their meat, fish, dairy, eggs, and oil and eat only whole food plant-based? So that's the bigger question before you ask how common it is, because yeah, there's probably not a lot of 96-year-olds even trying that. You know,
she moved in with her daughter and son-in-law, and her daughter and son-in-law were plant-based. Actually, her son-in-law is Eric O'Gray, who had an incredible story of losing 150 pounds. I actually interviewed him. I've got a video interviewing Eric O'Gray, and he and his wife, it was his wife's mom who moved in with them, and they plant-based, and she got off her insulin, got off everything.
Any other questions before we wrap up? All right, Vince, tear off them glasses.
Well, listen, it's 29 minutes after the hour. I'm going to end on time today. I get a bonus prize. Well, folks, thank you so much for joining us today on the Daily Huddle. I'm going to end today's show as I end all of our shows. And that is, I want to remind you of the fact that in this lifetime, you've only got one body. If you don't take care of that body, where are you going to live? You've only got one body in this lifetime. So eat as though your life depends on it. Eat more fruits, if that's all you do today. If all you do today is go buy some apples or some pears or some oranges and just have a couple of extra servings of fruit, or vegetable? Thank you, Cece. Because when you eat as though your life depends on it, you give your body a chance to heal itself. Eat as though your life depends on it because it does. My name is Vince Rountree. Myself and Rawlin Vanatta are co-hosts of the Health, Wellness, and Vitality Show. We are proud to speak and be a part of the Daily Huddle. Tune in to the Daily Huddle each and every weekday, 9 o'clock Eastern, 8 o'clock Central, and you will get a nugget of information that will help to enrich your life. Thank you for tuning in. Lisette, roll the video.
Hey, Vance,